Today on Action Hour, we are uncovering the harsh realities of horse abuse and slaughter for profit and entertainment. We'll spotlight questionable practices in rodeos, wild horse roundups, and the unfathomable abuse of horses in both entertainment and commercial enterprises. Thank you so much for being here today. Cameron, I want to go right to you. You are a filmmaker and you are a horse advocate. You started an organization, Veterans for Horses, and you created a film about soaring. Tell us, what is
Yes.
soaring?
Yeah. It was Veterans for Mustangs, and that was essentially I served in the Army National Guard, and a couple of my other combat friends who had seen combat. We all had one thing in common, which was we were healed by horses. And so when we saw the roundups happening out west, we just didn't fight to defend that. So we want to save the animal that saved us. And that's how Veterans for Mustangs started. And it has led to a bill that's in Congress right now, HR 726.
And we're going to get into all of that in a moment, but I want to stick on soaring for a moment.
Oh, okay. Soaring.
Yeah, what is soaring and why did you want to make that movie? And then we're going to Peggy and she's going to.
Okay, yeah. Well, that also ties into it because the first horse to help me heal was Awesome Gal, and she was a rescued Tennessee Walker who had been abused with soaring. And it's amazing how few people knew about this, and so I wanted to tell her story. And that was the genesis of this film that is Awesome Gal, that we did the short film in a little while back, and it won 12 awards and was even screened at Sundance and reached a whole new audience. And
awesome.
And so now we're trying to tell her story on the feature length and let people know what's happening with these animals, which is a pretty horrific form of abuse where you inflict pain on the animal, on their put caustic chemicals on their ankles and pasterns to inflict pain so that they walk in a exaggerated gait called the Big Lick Gait. And the Big Lick Gait, no matter what anyone tells you, it's a learned response to pain. You have to abuse the horse to achieve that gait. And so I'm sure Peggy can elaborate more on that. But
yeah, and we're going to go to Peggy for a moment. I just want to show a clip, the opening of your movie. No, let's save it. I take that back because we want to make sure people know no animals were harmed, and you're going to explain it step by step. But let's go to Peggy. Peggy, from your point of view as an expert, animal expert, veterinarian, what is going on with this? Explain what's happening to these horses when they do this procedure.
Well, I'd like to tell you the first time I ever saw this, I was in North Carolina and a horse was in the ring and it was ejected because it was so crippled he couldn't continue to perform. And I followed that horse out of the ring and it never even made it back to the barn. It had laid down on the ground and it groaned and groaned and groaned. It was just watching that horse, I could have cried. And the farrier came over and he started pulling the shoes off. And what they had done is they had pounded nails into the soft part of the hoof. And as he pulled the nails out, the blood just was pouring out of those holes. And that was my first experience with soaring, and I've never forgotten it. The front legs, the legs on a horse are very sensitive. There's a lot of sensory nerves in the feet of horses. And what these soarers do is they make use of that pain. They exaggerate. They make pain there so that the horse picks its feet up. They want it to have a great big lick, like Cameron was saying. So they put caustic material on these feet. They can pound nails into the feet. They can do anything to make those feet sore. And it's horrific. The pain doesn't go away. They lay down in the stalls. They don't stand up. They're abused when they're in the stall. The people come along and kick them to make them stand up.
Oh, my goodness.
It's horrendous.
Now, Peggy, I have to ask a question from my own, having spoken to someone who had a family member in a business, not this sort of gait, but are there some horses that are bred with very long legs that walk that way? Because I did see footage of colts that were prancing and they had a natural upstep gait. Is that possible? Or could that have been bred into them? I know we didn't talk about this before, but it just came to mind. So go ahead, Cameron, if you want to jump in.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, but every horse, and you breed horses for different things. Like you breed quarter horses to be sturdy and square so that they can handle livestock and that sort of thing, as opposed to thoroughbreds, which are bred to run. So yes, it's possible that they could breed these horses to have a larger step, but never to the point of what these steps are in the ring after their legs have been treated with caustic materials and that sort of stuff so that the legs are in pain.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
Did you?
that's what I was going to say. There's prancing, and then there's the biglet gait. When you look at the biglet gait, you can tell that is something very different from anything else you've ever seen.
Let's show. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going. I'm going to find a picture.
No, that's fine. That's it. So, but they'll try to say that. They'll try to say, oh, you don't have to soar the horse to achieve the biglet gait, or it's a natural thing. No, none of that's true. The biglet gait is extremely unnatural, which is why you have to abuse the horse to achieve it. Yeah, like that. That's not, that is a learned response to pain. The horse is trying to relieve pain when it's doing that.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, don't fall for that one. I've had people try to challenge me on that.
Yeah.
One person tried to say, oh, it's just like wearing a boot. And I'm like, really? Do you walk like that when you wear boots? Probably not, because it doesn't hurt you. So don't give me that.
No, I absolutely agree, but I do like to bring up every point of view.
No, that's good. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking in general.
No, I understand. No, you're not talking to me. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Well, if you take a look at the ankles, the pasterns, and the feet on these horses too, there's scarring, there's hair loss, there is a change in the tissue. It's thicker from the scarring, and if you handle it, the horse is very sensitive to being touched in that area.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good idea maybe to go into some of the other topics, and we're going to come back to your film in a little while.
Okay.
We want to talk about Veterans for Mustangs because you do have an act. And in fact, when I told Peggy about you, she said, oh, I wonder if they're doing, is there an act for this that they're working on?
Yeah.
Is that right, Peggy, or were you talking about the soaring? One of them you were concerned. But anyway, tell us what you're doing and tell us a little bit about Veterans for Mustang.
Yeah, so that's a bill. It was based on an idea that I had, and it was turned into legalese through the help of Animal Wellness Action and actually introduced by Lisa McLean as HR 726, the Veterans for Mustangs Act. And the goal is to replace the roundups with teams of veterans who manage the herds through birth control, that's specifically reversible birth control, and as is done at the Salt River, Assateague herds, or Virginia Range, for a couple examples. We just want to expand what has been proven to work to the rest of the herds and employ veterans to do it, because from the veteran angle, a lot of people don't realize this, but since 2001, 7,057 veterans have died in combat. But the number of suicides, according to Stop Soldier Suicide, is 144,000, which is insane. If you count the suicides as war deaths, which I think they should be, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars are this third highest casualties of all our wars, only behind the Civil War and World War II. And so it's a big problem. And the number one reason cited for depression among Iraq and Afghanistan veterans is lack of purpose. So, what better purpose could we have than using the skills that we've already trained for to go out and protect these animals that we love and defend this wild and beautiful heritage that we signed up to defend overseas. We just want to defend it here. And that's what HR 726 does. And so right now it has 28 co-sponsors, 14 Republicans, 14 Democrats. So it's very bipartisan, and we're proud of that. We're trying to keep moving forward with it and hope that we can get it passed before the end of the term.
That's amazing. So one of the things that you're trying to, let's talk a little bit about, this is interesting. I brought this up to you last time. I'm again playing devil's advocate a bit. But,
okay.
When we talked about the horse management and you were talking about the veterans taking over that responsibility. I would like to ask Peggy, what would be some of the challenges, if you see any, or perhaps maybe Cameron, you should explain how that would work, and then maybe Peggy can comment on if she thought there were any challenges that you guys might face. How about if we do it that way?
Okay. Challenges in terms of making it happen or passing the bill?
I mean, how would the veterans manage the horses? Now we know who's doing it now. It's not working. So how would you change that?
Well, that's a good question. So there is a precedent for this. We're not making something new. Several places, Assateague Island is a great example. Another good example is the Virginia Range in Nevada, 3,000 Mustangs, and the Salt River herd in Arizona is another great example, where the herds are managed oversight by the government, but they're managed by an individual group. And so that's how we would like to do it. We'd like to have veterans take over management. It's still Bureau of Land Management lands, so it'd have to be managed by them, but the veterans would take over a herd and ideally manage not just the horses, but the rangeland in general on their own with guidance from the Bureau of Land Management, but they wouldn't be involved. It would be veterans doing it.
So in other words, you would want them to train you guys to take it over, or?
Well, no, the way that it's done right now, we would use the methods already established by American Wild Horse Campaign in Virginia Range and the Salt River and those places I told you. Just use those training methods. And the other big thing is their program for keeping track of the horses and who's who. So everything's there. We just expand it to the rest of the herds, and the BLM doesn't even do any training for them. In Montana, it's the conservation. I can't remember the whole name, but there's a certificate you get by a conservation group in Montana that qualifies as the training to manage those herds. And so every single person who's involved in managing those herds with the birth control is trained by a totally separate entity, a conservation entity, which is a good thing. It's not the Bureau of Land Management is not even involved in the training.
Great. Okay. Peggy, do you want to weigh in on that? If you have any opinions on that?
Well, I have not worked in that area, but I do understand overpopulation because I certainly have worked on that with cats and dogs. How in the world let's say you have a herd of 3,000 horses that you're managing, and at least 2,000 of those are going to be mares, probably more than that, maybe 2,500. And if she has a baby a year, that's 2,500 babies coming up every year. I would wonder how you would manage birth control in these horses. And I know there have been some chemicals developed and so forth, but I don't know how effective they've been. Maybe Cameron could tell me about that.
For the Virginia Range herd in Nevada is 3,000 horses, and they achieved population stability in 2 years. And they were retirees going out there. Imagine what you could do with actual veterans going out there. I think people are overestimating how difficult it would be for veterans. The Assateague herd has maintained their population stability for 40 years doing this. And again, those are volunteer basis as well. It's a private group that does it. So the ability is not the issue. The issue is will from Congress to bother to do anything. And of course, the other issue is the just inherent stagnation of government bureaucracies that don't want to give up their power.
I'd like to ask, how is that stability in that herd maintained? I mean, how do you stabilize it if you can't control the birth on these?
That's the whole point. You control it through the birth control darting. So they go out. It's usually once a year. Not usually. It is once a year, and it's the reversible fertility control is PZP, and that is 1 year for one season. It's effective. So you have to keep reapplying it.
Okay.
And that's how they do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know there's some controversy also. There are other groups that don't believe in using birth control. We're not getting into the weeds of that. I just kind of wanted to get an overall
Yeah.
view of what it was, and to get it, I think it gives more validity when you get another opinion. So that's why we're doing that. Okay, Peggy, I just wanted to get a little bit into your background and how you decided to go from rodeo bareback rider to veterinarian voice for you actually got a law degree to become a voice for the animals. Tell us about that.
Well, I grew up, with cattle out in North Dakota and so forth, and animals. When you grow up on a ranch or a farm, you look at animals as income producing units. You treat them. We treated them well. We didn't have any factory farming. Our pigs were free until the day that they had to go to slaughter. But eventually, time went on. I got into veterinary school, and when I was in veterinary school, I was working in research. And I worked in the Department of Neurosurgery over in the Human Hospital. My doctor was Dr. Will Hunt. Bill was an internationally recognized human neurosurgeon. And anyhow, he was trying to recruit me to go to medical school. So he would take me along with him when he went to what he called brain cutting, which were brain autopsies in humans that had died of either strokes or cancer or whatever affected the brain. So as we were going through these brain autopsies, he would point out the functions, point out the structure, and what everything, how everything worked. And meanwhile, over in the veterinary school, I was looking at animal brains. And it turns out that the amygdala is the fear center in both animals and in humans. The prefrontal cortex and the hypothalamus are the pain centers. And guess what? Animals have those the same as humans do. The only difference really is the size of the brain. So that's when I realized, my God, those animals are just like us. They may not be able to speak English, but they feel, and they feel fear and they feel pain just like we do. So that was the big change.
Yeah, and I think people really need to recognize what happens to some of these animals in animal entertainment. For example, we do have a clip of a rodeo calf. Let's watch this little clip.
All animals in rodeos are sentient. So sentience means that you have emotions, that you have feelings, that you can think about the future, that you have form bonds with other animals, you have friends, you have kin, family members. So there's no question they're sentient. There's no question that they have emotions. And that, in fact, is why they are used for rodeo. The calf in a rodeo event, for a calf roping, would not run if it wasn't afraid. It runs because it's afraid for its life.
And that's Dr. Reynolds, and he was very, very, very good in his discussion of what he's seen of rodeo.
And you were telling me that this I didn't know before. People don't know this. They use the same calves over and over and over for this, correct?
Yes, they do, Lindsay, and they also use them.
Re-injure them.
They use them in the practice pens. In other words, when a roper is trying to become proficient as a roper, he ropes these calves over and over and over and over again. And Bob Fetzner was the meat inspector that I exchanged messages with and talked with. And he said when these calves come into the slaughterhouse, he was a slaughterhouse inspector. And he said when they come in, he said their bruises and their damage to their internal organs is just horrific. So we have proof of the damage to these animals from these meat inspectors.
Wow. And of course, you were a whistleblower and still continue to be. And without going into anything you don't wish to speak about.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
What happened? What happened when you tried, you had these evidence and everything. What happened when you brought this up and to your superiors and et cetera, and tried to expose it?
Well, when I worked for USDA, it wasn't the damage to the animals that I had the information on. My boss had stole over $100,000 from the travel voucher fund. And I took the information that I had from his secretary before she resigned, took it down to the regional director, and the regional director took one look at it. And he said, if you do anything about this, we'll file a grievance against you. So I knew he was covering up. So I turned the information over to Senator Leahy, and the rest is history. All three were fired: my boss, the regional director, and the head of veterinary services. And of course, then they came after me. So that's why I said, screw this, I'm going to go to law school. I'm not going to spend money on a lawsuit that I'll never win. So that's why that was the impetus for going to law school.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I want to talk about the tools used in rodeo, and then we're going to go back to soaring and look at some clips from Cameron's movie. But this was, I believe this was from something you had put together about the rodeo and calf roping. It's the tools that they used in, to get the animals to buck, et cetera. Do you remember this, Peggy?
Oh gosh, I've written so much of this that this could have been anything. This almost looks like what came from New Zealand, but it's all pretty much the same. The tools of torment, they were getting better with this, but there was always the shocker. They'd shock these calves to make them come out of that chute fast as they could. Twist their tails. There's still some of that going on. But when they finally burst out of the chute, they have to have a reason why they burst out of the chute. So it's something is being done to them. And what they do now is they crowd horses around and so forth. So it's pretty hard to see what they're doing. But they break out of the chute. They're running about 25 miles an hour. Then they're stopped with the rope. The body keeps going because it's heavy. So you stretch, you get damage to the ligamentum nuchae. And of course, anytime you damage the vertebral column, you're inciting pain. We all know what it's like to get our necks stretched or twisted. So and then they're thrown to the ground. Sometimes they're dragged. The damage that can be done during this process is certainly documented by the slaughterhouse veterinarians.
Wow. And so do these calves just go to slaughter after they're spent, or?
Well, it depends. After they get to be a certain size, they're no longer useful for roping. They have to be a certain size. So if they're still capable, they'll go into a feedlot. They'll be raised and then they'll be eaten.
Wow. That's just incredible.
Yeah, they don't have much of a future, these little calves.
Yeah, it's insane. So, okay, Cameron, we want to go into a clip. I want to show the opener to your movie, but we want you to explain the process that no animals were harmed, etc. Before
Yes, none were harmed. The soaring chemical is really water, and then the horse is in slow motion, and we were just walking him around in circles, and we sped it up. So no horses were harmed, and the rest of it is just humans. This is mostly a human story told that we're using the story of this woman who was healed by Awesome Gal to bring light to that type of abuse. And so the majority of it is the human story, and the few scenes with horses are relatively mild. Most of it is the horse running, which looks pretty magical. It was really awesome being on set and seeing the horse gallop and being able to capture some of those images.
Wow, that's so exciting.
We just let him run. Yeah, there was a wide space and he ran and we caught it and he went off into the pasture and then came back for food.
This is where people can see it, right? They can see the trailer.
Yeah, they can see it on that website. It's only 6 minutes. It won't take too much of your time, but hopefully we'll have a feature length for you soon.
Awesome Gal.
Yeah.
I just had to do that. Okay, here's the opener for Soaring.
Come here. Get around here. Come here. Get around here. Get around here. Get around here. Hey, come here. Come here.
Come on over here. Come on, let's get this done.
Come here. Get around Get over here. Come here. Get back from me. Come here.
Yeah, that guy has sound. I forgot how scary he sounds. But all that was recorded after. We had him talking to the mic and just say, "Sound intimidating," and so he did. And then we did it, and we added the horse sounds and all that. But the horse was mostly walking around, and yeah, it was a great experience. I love making. I love the process of making films, and then I also loved just being with horses, and that I can tell my rescued horse's story. We have a fantastic director, Frank Callow, who's doing that, and he's helping us with the feature length, and he'll be directing the feature length too. And so it looks like we got some good things going, but hopefully not in a very short time. I'll have some really good news to report. So we'll see.
Oh, you'll have to come back. I have a clip of Frank Callow.
WDBJ7's Katie Rashevko has tonight's good news here at home.
In 1B, take 2. Action.
Cameras are rolling inside Skyline Staples in Radford. New York director Frank Callow is creating a trailer for the movie Awesome.
You have these two abused, one's an animal, one's the girl, and at the same time, by faith, they run away from that abuse, and they finally meet each other, and for some reason, they just started bonding.
Awesome is based on the real-life relationship of Chance's awesome gal and Cindy Flincham.
I had a lot of anxiety, panic attacks from childhood, from going to school, being picked on.
She was still struggling with her past when she met Awesome.
She just took me under her wing and found out about her past, and I think that's how we joined up, and she took care of me.
I love it. And I love the point of the story where, the girl was abused as well. Maybe we should just watch that one right now too.
Okay. Yeah. No humans were harmed.
No humans were harmed. I think this is the right one.
You leave us alone.
You know you ain't leaving these kids. Get me.
Run, Sissy, run.
Get back here. Boy, you've done it now.
Hey. Whoa.
Wow. So tell me, Cameron, was she actually able to approach the horse at that poignant moment when they got together there? Just talk about that a little bit more.
Well, in the film, the horse was fine and they were friends, but in real life, so the way Sissy, escaped an abusive household and found work at a rescue barn, and she was actually scared of horses, and Awesome Gal was scared of humans. But we don't really know how this happened. Sissy just says that they kind of, when they first met, they had this connection, and it was almost like a spiritual thing, to the point where the first time that they met. Awesome did not cower in the corner of the stall like she normally does. She showed friendship towards Sissy, and Sissy got over her fear of horses. And within a short amount of time, when Sissy would come and do her work, like in the barn, shoveling poop and putting in hay, Awesome, she'd open the gate, and Awesome would come around with her and follow her doing her chores from each stall. So it's a really sweet story. And yeah, and so that's when my mom and me came into the picture. We wanted to help volunteer. And originally when Awesome Gal saw us, the only human she would not cower away from was Sissy. But over time and spending lots of love and energy, we got Awesome to trust us too. And now she's a sassy horse full of spunk and life, and we love her.
That's just wonderful to hear that. That's amazing. I think everyone needs to go and check out that trailer. And how can people help get the movie out?
Well, obviously funding is a big thing. So spreading the word so people know about it. And honestly, I think we have a good shot with a potential investor lined up, but we'd love this film to be huge. So if everyone could just tell everyone they know that this is a thing that's happening to look out for. Hopefully when the film's made and hits theaters, which I would love a theater release, people are like expecting it, anticipating it. So if you could help us create the anticipation, that would be incredibly, it would go a long way. Because, if this, when this is made, the whole point is to create awareness and a national outcry for this, because it's amazing that this still happens in 2023, to be honest. And the bill has never passed. I know Peggy could talk more about that, but it's I can't remember how many times. I want to say 3 or 4, but 3 or 4 times it's been introduced. It's failed each time. I think it's just reintroduced again. Doesn't look good. So we need some kind of catalyst. And this powerful story of an abused horse and an abused human healing each other, I think might be the way to do that.
That's awesome. So Peggy, did you want to weigh in on that? Any of that, what we've just seen, and what's your reaction?
The Horse Protection Act was enacted in 1970, but it isn't enforced very well. This has been one of the biggest problems. For instance, one of the problems is they don't have enough inspectors to go to all these shows. So sometimes if it's a 2-day show, the inspector will show up one day, and of course the people with the sword horses don't show up on that day, they show up on the next day. So it's, and they've also worked with the horses to train them not to flinch whenever their legs are being examined. So I don't know how in the world they would ever do that because the pain is so intense, but like most federal laws, they're not always enforced to the amount that they should be enforced when they were enacted. So that's one of the biggest problems. I don't know. There are fewer Tennessee Walkers sword these days, but it's still happening. And the pain in the sword horses never goes away. The rodeo, once the spurring is stopped, yes, there's still some bruising, but at least the sharp pain is gone. But in these Tennessee Walkers, that pain is there. It doesn't go away.
Well, you can imagine if something puts something into your nail bed, like,
using acid on the skin around your pastern, and you can imagine how that must feel. Yeah,
and the emotional pain too. I still cannot. I have like a cowboy hat, like when I go out on the farm with sunglasses. With Awesome, I still cannot wear those. I have to take my sunglasses off on my hat because she'll flinch and back away because it triggers something. So the emotional pain never goes away. So yeah, and it's I don't know what else to say to that. It's kind of amazing that this has to be said. To be honest, I don't understand what is so hard for people to. Some people want to cling to it almost out of ego more than anything. And I guess there's
hard to believe that people are still defending it.
Yeah, and it's like and I think also, I don't know, it's almost like they don't want to be wrong, because if they are wrong, then they have to admit they have been supporting abuse for their whole lives. And so I think there's this like psychological cognitive dissonance where they dig their heels in and refuse to admit anything is wrong with it. Which and I think the rodeo probably has that aspect of it as well.
Of course. And it's a lot about, they talk about tradition in the rodeo. I did have a good clip of that, where
they do too in the Tennessee walking horses. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like,
go ahead and talk about that if you want, how defensive people are and what, I mean, it is hard to break through culture, but people have to realize when your culture is torture to another being, that's not culture anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's well, it's almost a way of avoiding the issue.
Yeah.
Because you say, well, it's tradition. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. We never said tradition or it's not traditional. We're saying that this type of gait, like Big Leg Gait, isn't a form of abuse, regardless of whether it's tradition or not. So it's a way of avoiding the issue.
Yeah,
absolutely. Same thing with rodeos. From what I've learned, rodeos came about from cowboys that were bored, and they were on the range and they started these contests and evolved into a rodeos. Like this was over time. It was really just them, being really kind of weird because they were stuck somewhere and started being sadistic to the animals, maybe out of boredom. It's crazy.
I don't know,
that might be a tale. I don't have that's anecdotal, but go ahead. Sorry, Peggy.
Well, some of the rodeo people like PRCA say, oh, rodeo is based on tradition. Well, when I was working in my beef cattle practice from 1970 to 1978, none of my ranch clients ever rode their bulls. None of them ever speed roped their calves. They didn't put their calves in danger. That was their cash crop. And none of them made their expensive, well-trained horses buck. So this is not a tradition based on ranching. That's for darn sure.
How interesting.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of bull, really.
Well, there's another,
you did there.
I don't really mean it like that, but I mean how things evolve, and one little excuse or cliche will come out and everyone just repeats it, but it takes someone to finally stand up and say, well, if you really want to check the facts, this is not true at all.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant to say, but go ahead.
Well, there's some of the bronc riders have said that running spurs into their shoulders doesn't hurt because the spurs are dull and all that sort of thing. So just as an experiment, one day I laid down on my back in the living room, and I kicked into a bathroom scale. I was able to kick 50 pounds. Now I'm 5'4", and I'm not a kid anymore. But anyway, I was able to kick 50 pounds. It takes 90 pounds to hammer a nail into a 2x4. Now, if you take a guy that's 5'8", 5'10", he's got long legs. He's going to be able to kick a lot harder than 50 pounds. So he's kicking somewhere between where I am and what it takes to pound a nail into a 2x4. So I've used that as this is not an excuse for what you're doing to those horses' shoulders. And the other problem with the horses' shoulders is they're covered with hair. So you never can see any of the bruising or anything that happens to them. And that's true in any animal, even, in calves too. If there's a ruptured blood vessel in the neck, you just won't see it because the hair covers it up. But that's just another aspect of the cover-ups that go on with rodeo.
Absolutely. I want to go to a clip from the Veterans for Mustangs before we start to wrap.
They've absolutely saved my life. The horses have done more for me than any medication or any shrink ever has. I'm an active Army combat vet.
I was in the Air Force for 13 years.
I served in the United States Marine Corps.
I was Army National Guard. Horses changed my life. One specific horse named Awesome Gal.
That horse can feel my heartbeat, and it keeps me calm. It was just really the therapy that I was looking for.
I realized I know I have PTSD. Little did I know, I have pretty good communication with horses. They just attract to me like I'm a big part of their herd.
To just know that they're just getting slaughtered over politics, it just freaking irks the hell out of me.
What an incredible parallel. The American Mustang in the wild, men and women before the war, they're both failed by the government institutions that are built in to protect them both.
I just couldn't stand idly by knowing that horses like Awesome Gal were being destroyed.
And I know this act is going to be able to help veterans to give a purpose in their life again, because that's what it's done for me.
Why not allow veterans to be the ones to continue to protect and save this amazing symbol of American freedom and this unique heritage that we all signed up to defend?
I'm going to return the favor for the rest of my life and hope to join more veterans doing the same thing.
Another place that we could get information that, or where's the best place we want to direct?
Yeah, that website, animalwellnessaction.org/Mustangs. They have a lot of, they have some really good information along with that clip, but they've been great in helping us. And yeah, the like Amy was saying, Amy's the Marine veteran, but both the BLM and the Veterans Administration have failed in their purpose. Veterans are supposed to be helped by the VA, but the only solution the VA seems to have is, here are your happy pills, go be happy. Take these pills and shut up. That's really the only solution. And lack of purpose is the #1 reason cited for depression among Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, and pills don't fix that. And a friend of mine, her name's Tara Galentine, she has an incredible rescue. It's called Devil Dog Depot in Texas. And she's a female combat veteran, died 3 times in Iraq and was resuscitated. And when she came back, obviously had issues. And the only solution the VA gave her were, take these pills. Oh, those pills don't work? Take more. Take more. And at one point she wanted to get off the pills and they threatened her benefits. So that's how they treat veterans. That's what you have to look forward to when you serve your country, is coming back and having pills shoved down your throat. And if you voice any opposition, you're the problem, not their system. So that's what the motivation, a big part of the motivation for Veterans for Mustangs was, we got to take our healing into our own hands because we're not getting any help. And if 144,000 deaths is the evidence of that, clearly it's a failure. Clearly the VA has failed miserably if 144,000 soldiers kill themselves when they come back. There's what more damning of an indictment on your failure can you have than that? So that is, horses healed all of us. We love nature, we love the wild horses, and we want to give back to the animal that gave so much to us. So that's what we're trying to do.
Great.
And yeah, Peggy, no, you go for it.
Cameron, there was 2 things that came to mind as you were talking. Number one, that black horse that you showed initially, when you started the program, the black horse I was sitting on, his name was Nuisance, and he was the son of a wild horse.
Oh, really?
They brought wild horses into North Dakota. No, it's the black one standing on his hind legs. They brought horses into North Dakota from Montana and for use on the farms. And his mother was a Snow White horse. I'm sure she must have had Arabian in her. Her name was
wow.
But those were 2 wild horses we had on our farm.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it's the black one that she showed earlier, not the bay that I was sitting on. Then the other thing I wanted to say is my first husband is a medical doctor. He's a neurologist. And he did locum tenens work with the VA hospital in Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
And he would go in to check on these veterans that had these traumatic head injuries, and he would come back and he'd be just shaking his head. He would just be saying the government isn't doing enough for these veterans. They're just warehousing them. So he was very frustrated with the care that they should have been getting that they weren't getting. Yeah,
that's true. And so I'm glad some people realize it, but that doesn't, and things that haven't changed. If anything, like Amy said, she's like, it almost seems like the VA wants us dead. It's that, and I get where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Well,
it's cheaper.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go.
No, if you want to look at it super cynical, it's cheaper, and it's to the point where I'm not really giving any benefit of the doubt to the VA any more than I give to the BLM. So I know that took a turn, didn't it?
Yeah, they need to prove themselves. No, it's good that we're bringing out information that's important people if they want to take action. We are running out of time, so I'm going to go to Peggy for any last words. I thank you so much for coming on. You are such an incredible person with all the work you've done and continue to do. And also, I have so much more to talk to you about. I'm going to bring you back on your work with the USDA, all the other stuff you've done, humane farming, oh my gosh, it goes on and on. Your Insider Edition story was so interesting as well. But tell us anything you would like to share before we pack it in today.
Oh boy, I just don't know where to start. There is so much animal abuse in this country and beyond. Now I'm starting to work with the Charreadas, which are the Mexican rodeos, and oh my goodness. I don't know, sometimes it's hard to wake up in the morning and hard to go to sleep at night because things are so depressing. I think the factory farming that's going on now is so harmful to animals. I was on a factory farm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and there were dead chickens everywhere. And the ones that were alive were bruised. They were had infections in their feet. They were missing eyes. I mean, I don't know how any human can look at these animals and not understand the pain that they are in. And that goes from chickens to pigs to cattle to horses. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of just mind-boggling.
Well, we have, in fact, been covering a story about Wayne Chung, who is in jail, waiting sentencing, because he tried to expose just what you talked about with no knowledge. I mean, you're not working with him at all, to my knowledge, and from a completely different source, just described what was documented and footage was presented, and yet not allowed to present it to the jury. So in his case, so we see what's going on with that. But things like, I think Cameron said, things are changing. Things are changing and being exposed. Cameron, what would you like to add in there for your last part of this?
Well, I would honestly, I just
anything out?
Well, there's, like what you're saying, there is a change. I feel like there is a desire for change that's boiling under the surface, which means the reaction to that is going to be stronger. So the status quo and the people who benefit from the status quo are going to harden their resolve and fight back more. So really, I just want to tell people, the biggest thing that the way that they win is for us, we the people, to give up and have apathy for the situation and say, well, I can't do anything, so I'm not even going to try. So for that, I would love to caution everyone to avoid that, even though it can be hard and it can seem like sometimes nothing is happening. If they can't resist all of us, but they can, if only a few speak out and the rest are silent, they can win that way. So I would love everyone to keep raising their voice, and follow us on Facebook, both Veterans for Mustangs and Awesome Gals on Facebook. So we'd love to keep you informed, and the people do have a voice. We just have to be relentless. They usually wait for people to burn themselves out, which is easy to do. You can get burned out pretty easy, but I feel that we're so close, and now's not the time to let up. Now's the time to charge harder.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being on today and enlightening our audience. And we really did get into some topics we didn't expect, but I think they were important and well to be brought out. Thanks again. I'm going to see you both again soon, I hope, with good news. And Peggy, it's always a joy when I have you. Cameron, you're a joy as well. Bye, awesome, everyone, for today, and we'll see you next time. All
Bye.
Right.
Thank you.
Stay on, you guys, for a second.
Okay.
Just end the